Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis and you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture brought to you by my sponsor, Mixum Printing, the smarter way to print. I know printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy. From their instant quote calculator that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free to their 24-hour customer service support, Mixum is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And right now you can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials, and the company has also printed so many successful Kickstarter campaigns, and some of them you have even heard about on this very show. Sam Quinton is a great example of that with 47 Furious Tales. And they currently offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK, and Mixum can print and reach your audience around the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixum.com, and right now, listeners of my show can actually drop my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of a current order to get a 5% discount on their very first order. And I know, and I'm sure my guests will attest to this, that every percentage point you can get discounted off when you're funding a Kickstarter helps you make your goal, and it matters. And so 5%, 10%, or 3% makes a huge difference when you're funding Kickstarters, even if your goal is $1,000 over or you just made your goal. So that's Mixam.com. Again, type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab to get 5% off your very first order. And so I have with me returning guest, comic creator Isaac Fox. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Good to see you, Andrew.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit different. You know, usually you would have your camera on, but things are kind of crazy in your world. Things are crazy in my world. Everything is going sort of chaotic. And I know we don't have a lot of time, so we're going to get right into it. You currently have SuccuBUSTED on Kickstarter. It's funded at over 300%. And what is the basic premise for those who haven't seen it, haven't backed it yet, and don't know what we're talking about?
Yeah, it's going on right now. Most of the work I do tends to be heavily manga or anime inspired. This book itself is no exception to that. Suck You Busted is an ecchi comedy following the lines of something kind of like High School DxD or Monster Musume or High School of the Dead, which I don't know if that was technically counts as a comedy. Uh, the entire premise of the story is we live in a universe here where heaven and hell are real places. There's no debate or question over this. And the denizens of these locations will come to our world on travel visas, kind of like you or I would to another country. And since now there's a new type of citizenry or a type of visiting people, there is a law enforcement agency known as the Demonic Criminals Investigation Agency. It's a federal agency whose job is to handle demons in our world if they become unruly and break the law. Uh, this is obviously an organization that deals exclusively with criminals who are demons, and our main character, Agent Liam White, has his world effectively turned around when he suddenly is assigned a succubus as a partner. And as it turns out, trying to get anything done with a horny demon following you around is damn near impossible, especially when it happens in the city of Jacksonville, which anyone who's ever been to or is from this city will know what I'm talking about. And we pull no punches in making fun of Jacksonville at every opportunity we get.
Well, I mean, your football team just got a win after a big loss, losing streak. So I think things are turning around in Jacksonville.
Oh, the football team is the least of the things we make fun of. Though the book's initial subtitle is Jackson Devils, which is a play on the Jaguars mascot, Jackson DeVille.
And so to even go further into this, because obviously from what I pulled out, there's a little bit of a preview on the Kickstarter. You know, obviously Liam is sort of doing his job well, and his boss is kind of up on his ass a little bit, and he's trying to keep his job, and then he sort of is thrown into having a partner who, well, you know, obviously as you stated, is extremely sexual and extremely pushing the line, and now he has to figure out how to cope with this demon. And so what was this like really building this out? Because the rapport between, I think it's Rita, who is the succubus, and Liam is very, very much like an anime. It's very much in the idea of Love Hina, and it's very much, you know, I throw Chobits out there, very similar to that, and also Plastic Memories. And what was that like really building this out? Because this book does not read like a comic. It's more like an anime in a lot of ways.
It is much more anime-like than some of my previous works. Uh, what was that? That was loud. Uh, as far as building it out goes, I was initially doing my original two series, and I kind of started doing more market. I was able to do this more. I was able to do more market research, find people were into what they liked, and I've always wanted to write a story about a succubus. I just couldn't figure out how to do it. I had different stories in mind that all involved it. I'm like, well, how do you do a story without a succubus that isn't overtly sexual? We're talking about a demon that, in theory, gets its power from naughty acts. So how do I make that not a pornographic book? Uh, Tried a few serious ideas. Wasn't really too fond of them. Well, let's try something silly. I haven't done a silly book yet. Let's try that. Put it together. Got with my lead artist Mitsu Blinger. Ran through a couple of revisions. Luckily, it didn't take very long, and got the story together. And I've put it together since then, and it is easily the most fun one I've done. It's still fun to read and go back through. The characters are extremely vibrant and a little bit on the zany side, perhaps. It's been a very different development process because this book was started being colored before Pure Intent, which I had come out of a little while ago, which Pure Intent currently holds the record for highest funded, most backed single issue comic in Jacksonville's Kickstarter history. But this is SuccuBUSTED is if it doesn't beat it, considering where it's already at in the short amount of time it's been up, I would be extremely surprised. Uh, but we went through a couple of revisions on how to color it, how to handle it, because this book was my actual first experience with coloring a book. Normally, we don't do full color, and I have found that creates a whole other slew of challenges. But it's definitely worth it for the vibrant and very pretty product you can get out of it.
So to even talk about that, because obviously coloring, and I just had Andrew Henry on, and we wound up going into 45 minutes coloring discussion. And obviously, I've had Sanju Navagun on, Ivan Tao is coming on in a little bit around
Sanju's
12.
really good. I've worked with him several times. He's very good.
And so I'm very excited for that interview. But I'm sure as you figured out, coloring can make or break a book very easily. Obviously you need the art, you need the raw story, but if you put a darker shade into a certain thing, and you've done a bunch of covers, so you know sort of this, but even going into the interiors, it can break a book, it could change the tone of a book, and it can completely ruin a book. And what was that like? And also flatting, and also added expenses, and a variety of other things come up when you color. So what has that been like? Because obviously going into this, the first round, it's a real skill that somebody can color something. And most times people who are doing interior work, they don't do the colors themselves, not because they can't, but because it's just massively time consuming and
Too much
everybody's
time.
bills to pay.
All of my interior artists know how to color and are pretty good at it. They've all dictated they do not wish to do that on books they draw because the time sink is so massive. Which I prefer that anyways, because if I can have a different color, if I have a colorist and a line artist, we can effectively move faster. Uh, I don't know if I'm the best person in the world to ask about the whole coloring process because for me it was I found someone who could do it, Antoinette Bueno. She's scheduled to return on book two. And essentially, it was I handed her pages, the characters would look like when we did their designs. This is what colors need to be. Here you go. And then she would do it. And if we needed to make edits, she'd submit the pages and say, okay, let's change this, or this color's off, or we forgot to color this, or whatever. That's really all I can say about that process. Unfortunately, I don't do art myself, so I don't really know what it's like for them to do it. I understand it's time consuming, and a good colorist is extremely valuable. But we
It,
wanted
it,
to color this book kind of how Udon colors the Street Fighter books. They're very vibrant. The colors are simple, but they're very vibrant, very attractive, and very eye catching. They help really portray a sense of motion to the book. I always thought that Udon did an amazing job on that with the Street Fighter series when they do their comics,
it,
especially so
it,
when they do their swimsuit editions. It's
it,
just
it's a very cool style, and it's what I call sort of a American anime color style. versus, other styles that, Manglo box is a good example of a different type of style where it's saturated color that's ran through a down filter. And this is sort of run through an up filter in a lot of ways. And it's a very cool thing. And Udon and Street Fighter and those books are very nicely done, and they're very saturated, basic, bright colors that do a great job. And obviously those characters are well defined. And so obviously I'm very, very excited about this. And it looks good from the preview that I've seen. And so I'm very excited to see where it goes. Not to mention also it's just a lighthearted book, in my view at the very least, where I don't have to think too much about this versus Promisia or Pure Intent. This seems to be much, lighter, and I could just sort of pick it up and I don't have to worry too much about serious consequences occurring in this book.
In theory.
Yes, in theory, we all know things can go wrong. I mean, I'm sure this book reminds me a lot of Ninja High School. Is how I feel. Ben Dunn's Ninja High School, where it's very similar. It's very much that vibe in it. Just this is colored versus some of Ben Dunn's stuff that wasn't colored. But I digress. And you mentioned something else where obviously your style is very much dealing with manga and sort of the anime style, and that's what you deal with. Kremisi is in that genre. Pure Intent is in that genre. And obviously I'm curious, before we start showing covers off, and there's a few covers that I want to talk about, but what is that like? Because obviously manga and anime has never been bigger, and it's a very cool area to be in, where I'm 28 and I remember sort of being made fun of in school for watching things like Outlaw Star and Cowboy Bebop. And everybody's like, you watch Cowboy Bebop? I watch Cowboy Bebop. And then I'm speaking to this, guy who played football in high school. He's like, I watch this too. And so you're in a very unique blend. And why do you think that's caught on?
Yeah, I'm starting to notice as after the last two successes I had, I am seeing more manga-looking books popping up from the West, at least in America and around me. There's a lot. I could give an entire sermon on that whole theory of why manga is doing what it's doing right now. I think people, the comic crowd is kind of in two camps. You've got the old dogs who like things a certain way. They're your old school hardcore Marvel and DC guys. They grew up with Superman and Batman and Spider-Man, and they still like it that way. Which I'm not putting those guys down. Those guys are great. I think I'm a huge advocate of not fighting within fandoms of things. I think that we're all on the same team. We all you like, if one person likes comic, one likes manga, there's no reason we can't sit down and read our books and enjoy them together. Whereas the manga crowd, the anime and manga crowd seem to be a little bit younger, more early 20s, if not even earlier than that. And manga seems to put a greater emphasis on story. I'm aware that some art schools in America, at least from what my art team has told me, will stop talking to you if you show them you do anime and manga style work. They don't like that apparently here. It's not very respected, I guess. Again, I'm not an artist. I don't know. I'm just going from what my art team has told. Various artists have told me. And my former fiance was an animator and told me the same thing when she was in art school, that they were not allowed to submit anything like anime, or they would just be an automatic fail on the project.
It's also very interesting because manga, and I'm sure you know this, it's very cheap in Japan, and then they're just throwing it down on the train, and you can go through, at the end of the day on a train and legitimately pick up all this manga that is thrown out. And then in America, it's also relatively cheap for about 10 chapters. It's about $10. Versus, a graphic novel is really expensive. A graphic novel in America is average, I think, like $15 for 6 issues. And manga is the exact same, page rate in a lot of ways. Also, manga is weekly. Also, manga is somewhat, more accessible and cheaper. And there's also 52 issues or 48 issues that come out for One Piece every year, versus 12 issues coming out for a Superman title. And I think that that's also contributing to it, as well as there's also the anime side of it, where if you're reading, something like Attack on Titan, then you get to see it animated 3 years later. And then you get to see both sides of it. With comics, you don't get to see that. I think that that's a big factor in it as well. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Manga's vastly more simplified than American comics are. American comics, it's especially certain artists within the industry and certain books tend to spend an absolute insane amount of time making the pages as incredibly beautiful and detailed as possible. I remember reading Tokyo Ghost, and every single page just blew me away with how much detail is put into the art. Not to say that manga doesn't do that. Berserk and Vagabond exist, and every one of those pages will make you sick from how much time. Think about how much time it took to do one panel. Uh, those are, well, probably the creme de la creme. But manga's faster, yes, in part because the work ethic in the manga industry is, to my understanding, not as friendly as the American comic industry. Whereas American comic writers might actually get to have a life, whereas from what I recall reading and talking to colleagues who work over in the manga industry, a manga writer has on average 4 hours of free time combined in an entire week. So you don't do anything but live that life, and that's part of the reason why these guys will go on massive multi-year hiatuses from doing their projects. The burnout is real. But manga is just it's a faster. It's definitely. I hate to say this, but it feels like comics and all of this stuff is quote unquote disposable medium because it's just so fast. It's kind of like well, a lot of media is taking on that style today, where everything's pumped out as fast as possible, and it makes it more disposable. Uh, and a lot of
Just,
manga.
yeah, even to speak about that, and it's a step away from manga for a second. And I mean, obviously, Kickstarter is very interesting right now, where there are what I think 260 projects on Kickstarter right now in comics, and there might even be more at this point. And one of the problems I'm having as a consumer is that obviously I have X amount of money to throw at a project every single month. And there's so many good projects out there, and that I don't know where to throw my money per se. It's tricky to figure out what projects I should back, what projects I shouldn't back, and also, do you feel that what's going on with Kickstarter, if it's sustainable? Because to me it seems like there's too many projects going on Kickstarter. I'm not saying the more comics there are, the better, the more people that are doing it. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for them, and I'm happy that people are making bank on this and doing well. But at a certain point, I feel like the industry on Kickstarter is overburdened, and I even feel like the comic world is overburdened to some degree, because when you have 40 titles coming out from Marvel and DC, I feel like that's a little bit too much. And I'm curious how you feel about that, because I think both indie and mainstream are having the exact same problem. I think this is, to some degree, at some point it has to either rescind or cave in on itself, I feel.
That's an entertainment industry wide problem. Is that it's every possible aspect of entertainment right now is oversaturated. Doesn't matter if you're playing video games, watching a movie, reading a book.
I mean,
It's all
right,
vastly
Netflix,
oversaturated.
Netflix has a $20 billion production budget. Every single year, Disney has a 14 or $16 billion. Amazon is gearing up around Disney's level. Hulu is going to get crazy. I mean, AT&T and HBO Max, I mean, I don't know what their production budget looks like, but it's got to be up near Disney's level at some point. And I mean, I'm just curious where you think all that's going, because it is, I feel, and I'm obviously on the comic book investing side, and it's a big concern for me, is that what happens when this thing falls apart, because it's coming. I mean, I think it's crystal clear that it's about to happen at some point, whether it's 2 years from now or whether it's tomorrow. And I'm curious what you feel about all that.
I don't think Kickstarter is in danger, or Indiegogo, or any crowdfunding source. I think everybody is starting to get sick of all the quote unquote mainstream content, and the older guys may not explore other routes as much. But the younger gen will definitely start looking online for different sources as opposed to seeing things that they're just tired of seeing. There's already the argument people have now, they're getting sick of superhero films. So eventually they're going to look for something else. And I think Kickstarter, Indiegogo, all that's the answer to that. I don't see those getting smaller anytime soon. I see them getting bigger. The only problem I have with them, and I'm not sure yet how to feel about it, is when already developed or established mainstream companies show up on Indiegogo or Kickstarter and compete with us. Power Rangers has been on here. Keanu Reeves is Berserk, and it's like, well, I don't know if I feel like it's okay.
I'll one up you, and it's going to lead right into to the book I'm probably going to back in the next hour. The Resident Evil board game is right now on Kickstarter. The He-Man board game is on Kickstarter. You know,
Exactly.
you have big properties now on this. I mean, you have books like Curse Words that Charles Soule and Ryan Brown did, which is Image, which is sort of a hybrid because they technically are indie, but they also have corporate money behind them that funded on Kickstarter. And then you have things, and I don't mean to speak ill of Ben Dunn, but you have things like Anarchic Press on Kickstarter. And it gets tricky on what I guess is supposed to be allowed and what isn't, what's considered to be indie, what's not indie. I mean, you know that I'm a big Zenescope fan. They are on Kickstarter. They just funded, 9 graphic novels. They fund their statues that they do on Kickstarter. Is Zenescope an indie company? I mean, it's a fair discussion. And I'm very torn on this as well, where who's allowed on, why are they coming on, what's going on. Obviously, I'm launching a Kickstarter, in the next few weeks. And, am I allowed on this? Am I considered to be indie? And it gets real tricky. And this is something that I'm trying to figure out is that, would DC Comics be okay to be on Kickstarter? I mean, why are they on Kickstarter? That's the other question too. And so I completely understand, and I'm in a very similar position. I think that you're in because it's like, how am I supposed to feel about what's going on with all this stuff? Because what happened with Berserk is a lot of oxygen got brought into the room. Everybody did better when Keanu Reeves' project was on Kickstarter, but then when it left, the saying is that a rising tide raises all ships. But when that tide goes away, all the ships come back down. And that's exactly what happened on Kickstarter, is that about 3 months later, more projects failed because Keanu Reeves, Scott Snyder, Todd McFarlane, all those people were not on Kickstarter, and there was actually less oxygen and less traffic, and it creates a real problem.
Well, that's inevitable, and it's hard to say if I'm allowed to be there or not because who gets to draw that line? The reality of it is we can't hate the player; we have to hate the game at that point. It's the Kickstarter, Indiegogo, all these guys. We have to remember they're a business, and if those companies come on and make the money, they're not going to say no. For as far as the reasoning, why are they doing this? Well, that answer is obvious: money. The money is on. There's money in crowdfunding websites right now. There's a whole different audience that they can reach there that may not be the same one that walks into a comic book store, and that audience has money, and that's what they care about. I hate to bring up money a lot like that because it feels shallow and dirty to do that, like I'm some kind of American corporate bastard. But
I'm
definitely
very
a
upfront.
motivator.
I'm very upfront. My Kickstarter, I'm not having a money problem where I'm in debt, but to run this project is expensive. To run your comic book isn't cheap, you
Yeah,
know. And so I'm going on Kickstarter because if I raise, I think my Kickstarter, if everything is bought and booked, I think I'm talking like $10,000 to $12,000. If I raise $10,000 to $12,000, that grants me a huge war chest in a lot of ways to actually build and establish and almost create, I don't want to say legacy media, but actually have sort of that mentality where I'm going to come back to Kickstarter for season 4. But now I might go out and hire somebody to do certain things, and the business is going to be expanded and the infrastructure is going to be built, and all that money is going right back into it. But I need money to do a bunch of projects, much like you need money to do a bunch of stuff that you're doing with this, which we're going to get into rewards in a second. But, obviously, I know like nobody wants to talk about money, but I don't want to be poor and I don't want to self-fund because I don't have 12 grand in my pocket. And I don't think most people in the indie comic world or even in podcasting have 12 grand in their pocket to go build out infrastructure and make needed improvements.
that's a slippery slope though to talk about money and how that works and what your actual expenses and all that are. There. If anyone's looking at doing Kickstarter, I can tell you your expenses are going to be significantly higher than what you're thinking. And I
I'm
don't mean by
well aware. I'm in a unique position because everything that I'm doing is digital. When you just do completely digital, which is what my Kickstarter is, I'm obviously going to be funding season 3 of the podcast. Everything that I'm doing is digital, so my expenses are significantly cheaper than other people because I'm basically doing digital products, and a bunch of them are already built, and they've been built for a while. But again, I also understand that printing a comic, my sponsor is Mixum. I know exactly how much it costs to produce and print comics, and I know exactly how much a 250 batch costs, and not to mention that's just the printing. It's not the art, and so it's kind of crazy in that realm. And so whenever somebody's doing a Kickstarter, obviously, if you think you need 5 grand, you need more like seven. So I'm well aware of it, and it's tricky, and there's a reason why I'm only doing digital. But I don't want to talk about money because I want to talk about your rewards instead, because those things are way more fun. And there's a few ones that I'm going to quickly show. So obviously, this is sort of just the regular cover that people can pick up. It's obviously digital. There's the physical bundle. I think this is the lead artist on that one. Then there's this one because we were speaking about Udon and Darkstalkers, and this stuff is cool. Um, and then we get into this stuff, which is, obviously the naughty covers. And then this is the one that I really want to talk about. And so what is the deal with this one? Because obviously there's the regular, there's the naughty. I don't know if the person in the middle gets kidnapped at some point in a video game. But obviously you like paying homage to a lot of things. And I believe that's Jill Valentine, correct?
It is. Well, those characters are not in any book or series. We sat down and for various reasons decided to create some mascots. So myself and everyone except for one person on the team has a mascot now, and we wanted to create characters we could put on covers and we could do things with that would be fun to see and enjoyable and sexy. You will see them actually in somewhat of their own little comic when the Foxy Vacations #1 comes out next year, which is every anime has the Hot Spring episode. Well, this will be a Hot Spring book that is essentially just a pinup book, which will every page is a different artist. It's a bunch of naughty pinups. There's about 4 pages of actual comic panels in it featuring these lovely ladies. What they are is the girl in the middle, dressed as Jill Valentine, is Brooke Astral. She is the mascot of my publishing company, Astral Ticket. We needed to create a character that combined what we do, which is a combination of Japanese and American aesthetic. But what's super American? A raccoon. What is anime? Well, animal girls with ears and tails. Well, there we go. We have a raccoon girl. Dressed in if we're staring at the picture on the left, the blonde is my personal mascot. Also, my picture here is a Zoomy Fox, dressed as a sexualized version of Pyramid Head from Silent Hill. On the right, the pink-haired girl is Benny Bunny, who is Mitsu Blinger's personal mascot. Mitsu is the lead artist on SuccuBUSTED. She did Cremisi issue 4. You'll be seeing a lot more of her in the future. And in the back there in the purple is Neffy, the demon, who is the mascot for the Colors to Pure Intent Gentle Nelly. We wanted my favorite holiday of all time is Halloween. So I wanted to put together something that would be special for the month. So let's do a holiday. Let's do a holiday exclusive. It's only available during Halloween, and we can do some variations of it. So I got with an artist named Aldi Fazan, who you're going to see a lot more of when he has been assigned to lead the first issue in a new series that will come out. It probably won't be until 2023, given how long everything else going on. But these covers were special. They were super fun. We always wanted to dress our characters up as certain things. Myself being a massive Silent Hill 2 fan, I was like, it's got to be some kind of version of Pyramid Head. How can I make this work? How can I make Pyramid Head sexy? We figured that out. There is also a new version of that cover that actually just came out that's an exclusive metal variant where the girls are wearing even less clothing than what they normally have on there.
So you're doing the trifecta Zenoscope style stuff
On
that.
this particular one, the rule for SuccuBUSTED was if there's a cover, it has to have a naughty variant. It's an etchy book. Let's not pretend we're not doing what we're doing here. We're definitely making a book that has a lot of nudity. I do want to point out though that while SuccuBUSTED does obviously have a lot of sexual emphasis, the acts of sex are never shown in the books. It is not a hentai. It is not a pornographic series. You're just going to see butts and boobs. I don't know if we're going to show crotch in the book itself or not at some point in time for female characters. I haven't decided yet. We'll see how the reaction is from this campaign, and I'll be able to use that information to go forward. I always make the argument that we are in the business of making people happy, and if people are happy to have some of that in the book, then we can negotiate making that happen, with the only exception being actual sex. Brooke and Azumi, however, though, have somewhat come to life, and that two of my assistants are now Brooke and Azumi. Brooke, usually if you talk to anybody on Kickstarter or social media, you're probably getting Brooke, not me. And I'm sure, I think you've messaged me before, and they've had to reply like, "He's not here. What can we do for you?" Because sometimes it's not going to be me that's going to be on the Facebook or any of those. And Azumi now manages our Discord fan server for me. So it takes those two lovely ladies have taken a lot of time for me to be able to do more things than I was doing. Because unfortunately, the piece of advice I always give people, every time I do a convention, I was like, "Oh, I want to do this. What do I do? What do I do to do what you do?" I'm like, "All right, cool. Do you have a girlfriend? Do you have a boyfriend? Do you have hobbies? Do you have friends? Do you enjoy doing things with your friends? Throw all of that away because you don't have time anymore. Get rid of it. I don't care. Get rid of it. Your time doesn't exist anymore." So now, luckily, with Azumi and Brooke helping me out, I'm able to do a little more. But the reality of it is, I still work a 10-hour a day job to come back, and then I do this for 5 or 6 hours, and I sleep maybe 6 hours a night if I'm lucky.
I know the feeling, and I've gone through hypergrowth in the last 10 weeks. And when you're going through hypergrowth, it is insane, and people don't understand what happens and what it actually takes to do all this. And I've also learned how to start working smarter, not harder. And also, right now, I just can't afford a VA or assistance or anybody like that. There's nobody really in my life who can help me. So obviously you have to figure out how to do it, and sometimes you can't do it all, and you have to figure out what's the most important thing first and foremost, and then I tear down. And sometimes I miss certain things, but I'm doing my best, and that's sometimes how it is for a while. It's unfortunate that sometimes you're just duct taping your ship to just get it across the finish line. And
I
so
never had to do that per se, because luckily I'm pretty strict on quality control. As anyone who reads SuccuBUSTED will see, any of our stretch goals are subject to a lot of quality control. Even our stretch goals, some of them being just simple prints, every one of them will be inspected to make sure that they are without flaw. My general rule is I'll allow one minor flaw on a book or a print, just as the CDC will allow you to have that if you're trying to get it graded. It has to be something small, something that you have almost have to take a magnifying glass to catch. If I see anything more than that, then it's got to go back to the print shop and be replaced. It's just not up to par. The Kickstarter crowd, especially, seems to be more your collector audience. They
yeah.
want that high quality, that perfect 10 grade they can get, which I don't promise 9.8s. Unfortunately, with me mostly being just physically one guy who packs everything and does it all, that's beyond my capacity. But I have had a couple of backers who said they want to get a book graded. And if you come to me and say you want a book graded, I'll work with you to get you one that's the highest possible one I have. But on average, I've never seen anybody on Kickstarter guaranteed 9.8. I don't even think Polito does that. That guy is the god of
So,
it.
so I've seen it a few times where somebody's promising a graded certain number. Where there's like they're guaranteeing with CBCS. Jim Noble's doing it right now with a reward where he's basically saying, "Hey, this book's going to get graded. It's going to come back as
Oh,
a."
if he's doing it as a reward chart, I can see that. But if you're on a massive scale, I can't
Yeah,
imagine how you would do that. Even the collectors companies I'm associated with say they can't do that. They'll order 500 and try to get 100 of them to get graded.
yeah, yeah. You can do it with 20. And if you know you're getting a grade and you're going to send out 50 of them, you can do it very easily that way. But doing it in which that, but I think most people want 9.4 or better is usually the standard. Um, like Zenoscope is good at that, where they do 9.4s or better on a massive level, and they're pretty
That
good
wouldn't
at
be too hard. 9.4 wouldn't be too hard. You were
it.
showing
Even
off the covers there. It's funny you mentioned that. I literally just got. I've gotten this question several times. I just got it again. People, other creators asking if they can hire cute, sexy robots. And it's nice to get those messages saying, "Oh, I love this work. Can I hire them?" Like, but cute, sexy robots has explicitly informed me that they will not work with anyone on comics anymore except for me. So I'm very honored by that. But it's like, oh man, I've actually had someone as big as Dan Mendoza ask me if I can get this person for them. Like they won't do it. I'm sorry. I know you can pay better than I can, but they won't do it.
so let me ask a question. I'm assuming that the cute, sexy robots, if they wanted to work with somebody else, you wouldn't hold it against them. It's not like they're under a contract, correct?
None of my artists are on exclusivity contracts. See, anyone who does a cover for me, it's just the contract is just here's the cover, do the cover, and then whatever.
What,
Even
what,
my
what,
interior
what I
people, I wouldn't hold
mean,
that. That wouldn't stop them.
what I'm asking, just in my point I'm asking, just so everybody's understanding is clear. It's not that they're working only with you exclusively and they have a 4-year contract, sort of like Peach Momoko with Marvel. It's yeah, it's their choice not to work with anybody else. It's not
Right.
you.
I don't dictate those things. I would never do that. Even if one of my closest artist to me is Mitsu Blinger, who's even if she told me she wanted to work with another creator, she got hired by another creator, and I absolutely hate. I wouldn't say no to doing it because, well, she's got bills too. It's like she's got to do her job. I get it. CSR, I don't have the power to. CSR is bigger than me. I don't have the power to limit anything that individual does, and I would not do that. That'd be horribly, horribly narcissistic and asinine to do. Uh,
I just want to
artists
make
on
it crystal
contract to me.
clear before you and me both get in trouble for it. I
Oh no,
want
I
to.
don't dictate those things. I don't control the art. The only thing that I'll ever dictate on what artists do is if they're working for me, I say, "Hey, I want this character to look like this, or I'm looking for this kind of style," and that depends on who's doing the cover and why. With someone like Dan Mendoza or Q60 Robots, I don't really have very much control, and I don't choose to take that. I say, "Here's the character. This is what I'd like to focus on. What do you want to do?" And then they'll get back to me with one or two drafts. I say, that's great. Something happens with lyrics. Had the honor of working with Lyrics several times. You'll see her again on Cremisi 2 Rebirth next year. And usually I just say, here's the character, and this is a basic rundown of the kind of story this is. Here you go. The bigger the name the artist, usually the less control you're going to have if you're an indie and what they do for a cover. They don't necessarily like being told what to do, which is understandable. With my interior artists, Neela Nandita and Mitsu Blinger, and a little bit of Aldi Fazan, I have a little more power in what they do. I can dictate things a little more, but that's different in the sense that they work directly for me, as opposed to being on on a single cover contract. We've got very lucky this time to do what we've done with the covers. Makushima has returned to us again with the Darkstalkers homage cover. I'm a massive Darkstalkers fan. My favorite franchise of all time. I wish they would bring that game back, although the comics have been really good. Let's do more comics of it then. I don't care. Give me more Darkstalkers, damn it. So
Especially the foil Darkstalker comics are really good. If you can
very
find
nice.
them, I have
The
a bunch of
Darkstalkers,
amazing.
their characters obviously were a little bit of an inspiration. I always liked Lilith from Darkstalkers. I thought she was always one of the cutest characters. Like I like that we have this succubus that isn't like overtly sexual in her design. So when we were working on SuccuBUSTED, like, well, I didn't make the main female character is going to be a succubus, but you think of a succubus, you think of a girl with a very large chest, prominent rear end, and all these other ridiculously outlandish sexual features, which makes sense for a demon that's job is to seduce people. Uh, but I was like, well, you know, it'd be funny if we had a sex demon who wasn't busty. If she was nearly flat chested, and that's where Rita kind of came to be. Like, we want to focus more on a character who is impish and cute in her behavior, as opposed to just oozing sexual energy. There already is a character like that you will see. It's the same character that's on Dan Mendoza's cover. She fulfills that role, but as far as the main character, we didn't want to make it that much. We wanted the sexual energy of the series to be funny, as opposed to just blatant fat material. We didn't. I didn't want that. I'm not here to do that. You don't get me wrong. If that's how you enjoy the book, that's on you. Enjoy yourself. Have a great time. More power to you. But I didn't want the main characters to embody that. So I was like, let's make them funny. How can we make them silly? And ultimately, Rita came to life and took a lot of inspiration from Lilith's design from Darkstalkers. Again, I just love Lilith. So we were able to do that to create characters that are sexy, but in a fun way, as opposed to sexy in a pornographic way, which is what I want to avoid.
Even going further, because there's one more cover I want to talk about, and it's this one, and I think this is very very important to actually talk about. Where obviously I'm going to get the name wrong, so I'm not even going to attempt because I don't want to be wrong here, and I don't want to be insulting.
I still pronounce it wrong.
But this is very much a wraparound. I think this cover is fun, and obviously this is, I think it's safe to say, a pride cover in a lot of ways. And
Oh,
it's
it's
a
called that.
what?
We directly call it a pride cover. It is.
I'm making sure. I don't know what's offensive anymore. I don't know what's offensive because it is what it is. But I love the fact that there's representation. I also love the fact that you just don't have just girls doing it, but you have the guy. Obviously, he's shirtless, and you have a lot of stuff going on. It's also a really beautifully illustrated cover. And what was this like in this decision like? Because I do believe in representation in comics. And right now, it's a very controversial issue in mainstream. But I think that there's a place for everybody in comics, and I think it's very cool. And I think that people sort of like this stuff. And I think that people are like, hey, you know what it is? I like representation. I like seeing certain things on this. And also, this book, you have a succubus. And I don't think that succubuses discriminate on sexuality. I've never heard of that where I think they go both ways in a lot of ways, for lack of a better word.
That's up to the writer. I will say in the universe of SuccuBUSTED, lust demons they don't particularly care either way normally. Certainly some may have a preference, but for the most part they don't really care. It's any form of consensual attention fuels their power, so they don't really care who it comes from per se. Of course, some will have their preferences. As far as this cover goes, uh, this was, to be clear, this was never made as a political statement or anything like that. I've had some questions on that. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to do that. Uh, this is something that apparently catches a lot of people off guard. As I learned from an interaction with one of my fans one time, the person who writes all of these books is bisexual. Uh, and I didn't realize how surprising this was, considering most of my covers and a lot of my work is on sexy females. But I had an interaction with a fan at a convention one time who was talking about some of the work that I was doing, and then showed me a picture of Shinji from, what is he from? Darn it, Evangelion. I don't know what the names of this. I know that. I
Are
think
you,
I
are you
know
talking
really
about
well.
3.0? Are you talking about 3.0 or are you talking
It doesn't
about
matter. It's just Shinji in general. It wouldn't matter. It was him and the girl and the female character dressing up as a girl, and the person saying, and this person at my table was saying, "Yeah, traps are kind of weird, don't you think?" And I was like, "Well, actually, I'm dating one, so I can't really say that." So a friend of mine, when I showed him this cover, I was like, "Yeah, here we go." He goes, "Oh, you're doing a pandering cover?" I was like, "No, the naked stuff is the pandering. This is closer to what I actually do." But there's more reason to that. Suck You Busted is an ecchi comedy, but it has a great emphasis on the ideology of how we say we live in a free society, but we're so judgmental on who people choose to love. But this is applicable to same sex couples, trans couples, mixed race couples, but we see it in this book through the eyes of demons and humans. I don't like. I am forbidden by my own rules to get involved in political or anything that's too hot. We don't. I don't do that. But we do care about decency and equality in what we do. And I wanted to do the message within Succubus. I want to be an etchy with a heart, but at the same time, I don't want to bash a reader over the head with this message. So it's in there, but it's in there in such a way where it plays into the story with between Liam and Rita, but it doesn't shove a message down your throat, as I don't want to do that to a reader. I'm one of those people where, for me, comic books and anime, manga, all that is escapism. I go there to get away from the absolute obscene bullshit that is this reality.
There's a saying where, comics have always been political. No matter which way you look at it, whether, you have Superman, with the Victory Garden with Batman and Robin during World War II, or you have Captain America dealing with issues in wartime and things of that nature. But also, there gets a point where, you know, I want to read a comic and I don't want to deal with what's going on in the real world. I'm in the middle of watching Full Metal Alchemist right now. I really don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to see that because this is my relaxation time. I deal with a lot of stuff. I used to work for the government. I used to deal with it every day for 8 hours, and so it doesn't bother me one way or the other about this, but I don't want to see, politics in my comics that are American politics because, well, I deal with that on a regular basis. And I think it's a common mistake. And also, I'm a business and you're a business in a lot of ways. And so, my customers, it doesn't really matter. I don't have a political stance as a business beyond saying, hey, look, I want to deliver the best product I can deliver in the cheapest, most effective way that, with the least obstacles, which isn't political because that's what everybody wants to do. I think if you can deliver your comics easier, there's nothing inherently wrong about that. That's the only political thing I have is I want to deliver it the easiest way possible and the cheapest way possible that provides the most value. That's my goal and my objective as a business. And so, I mean, I personally like it. I think it's a great cover. I think it's a beautifully illustrated cover as well.
I knew it wasn't going to be one of our most popular ones, and I wasn't intending it for it to be. I just wanted to send that message that, hey, this book does have something for everybody. If you like more LGBTQ centered content, well, that message is within the book. But at the same time, if you are someone who likes to escape away from the current atmosphere of the world to just watch some big breasted demon girls bounce around, well, I've got that too. If you want to see some cute shirtless guys, well, we have the cover. We have some of that. There's a little bit of everything for everybody. I don't believe in isolating or over specializing. We wanted to make sure that anybody over the age of 18, to be clear, could open this book and enjoy it for whatever aspect. Maybe you'd enjoy the naughty humor or the characters or the whole ideology of good versus evil, whatever it is. Or maybe you live in Jacksonville and you can read this book and you will get exactly what the hell I'm talking about sometimes when it comes to this city.
Yeah, and even going further into this, and I'm going to give you a chance to promote in 1 second. I've said this before. The three things that are dictating entertainment as a whole is obviously on demand, meaning that I can read whenever I want to read, or I can watch whenever I want to watch, or anything like that. Obviously big libraries and complete customization slash choice. And this is one of those things that I think fits really well is that you have a lot of covers and this book and this cover in particular is a choice where if you don't like it, you could go pick up the Trick or Treat book. You could go pick up a different cover and there's something for everybody. And I think that's what dictates and that's what's really driving, I think, society. And I think it's going to drive it even more. I'm a big fan of things like Netflix and Disney and Amazon and Crunchyroll because they provide me with customization, which is choice and on demand and big libraries. And that's what's dictating entertainment. I think you hit the nail on the head with this when you have this cover or the Dan Mendoza cover, or you have a Cosmic cover that I didn't show because I don't want to get demonetized on Facebook or YouTube. It's pushing the line. It's pushing the line. It's a great cover. But obviously, having said all that, and I know we're slightly over, and I don't want to keep you from actually doing work on this book. But where can people find you, and where can people actually back this stuff, and where can people pick up covers, and also, where is it going next? Because I know that you're over 300% funded. I think you're over 15,000 at this point. A bunch of stretch goals have been unlocked as well. And I think everybody's getting those. And so obviously, I want this book to do 20,000.
Uh, 20 is the initial hope, solely because that would break my personal record from last time. Uh, The only place you can get the book right now is going to be on Kickstarter. SuccuBUSTED, SuccuBusted. That's the only place you can get the book right now. Eventually, it will go up for sale on on my website, foxycomics.com with two X's. That will take a little while. My general rule with those things is that I have to get it out to the backers before I can make it publicly available. I feel like as a Kickstarter creator, my backers are very, very important to me. They're very precious. So if they took the leap of faith to give money to me with no guarantee they're going to get anything, which is not me. I mean, that's how Kickstarter works. Then they deserve the special treatment of, all right, you get this first for anybody else does, and no one else gets it before you. They deserve that preferential treatment because they went above and beyond for me. They deserve the same from me. Other than that, I have Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Those are all Isaac Fox Comics and Art. Again, on those, you're probably going to get a chance to talk to Brooke. We do have a fan Discord server. We put in some of the updates on the Kickstarter. That is managed by Azumi, so you get to talk to her. Sometimes she shows off some insider information or what's going on with that. So, that server gets told what's coming out before anybody else does. We do a few promotions here and there with our friends over at Danger Zone 1 from Midnight Publishing. They also do a manga kind of book. Great group of guys. That's the best places to find me, really. Usually, if you're trying to get me, Kickstarter is the best one. If you're trying to get me personally, that might be difficult. You might have to ask for that because I myself, I'm old. I don't like social media. I don't really care much for it. I never have. I don't understand it. I don't know why anyone likes it. I'm sorry. It's completely beyond me. So I'm very happy that Brooke and Azumi are taking that over for me so that I don't have to. I find it very stressful and tedious. So I'm allowed now to focus more on creating more graphics, getting things put together, and managing the rest of these upcoming projects. People tend to think, oh, you write comic books, you get to spend all day looking at cute art, cool art, and writing comics. I think 5% of my actual job is writing the damn book. I don't get to do that very much.
I can attest to that. I'm not writing a comic. People think that, oh, most of my time is doing podcasting. It's about 20% is doing the actual interview. The other 80% is all the prep, all the social media, all the booking, all of the deals behind hand, sponsorship deals. Obviously, some other stuff's going on as well, and a bunch of other stuff's going on. So I know exactly what it means when you're running something and you're doing all the back office, and it's crazy, and I think people don't understand. Quick point that gets it across. Paul Levitz, I interviewed Paul Levitz. He was running DC as a publisher and as the president, and during the weekends he would do comic writing if he wanted to write a book. He was not doing comic writing during the week. As a executive in a company, that's what happens. And that's what people don't understand. And you're in sort of that position to some degree.
Very much so. I've worked in entertainment professionally, and I can tell you that every 1 hour you see somebody in front of a camera, that's 4 hours of prep work by about a dozen other people. And that translates over into the indie world at the same time. It's not as big, obviously. We aren't doing anywhere near as much as they are, but at the same time, whereas if we're going to go live, when I was working in entertainment, we had an entire production crew, we have a studio, we have about 100 people all together that can make this work. If you are doing Kickstarter and you're running a comic, you are one person. You don't have anything else, which is again why I say if you're trying to do this, you just need to go ahead and throw away everything you enjoy and all of your friends and family because you don't have time for them anymore. They don't matter anymore. Sorry, pick one. Now that's obviously some people can make that work. That's a over exaggeration, perhaps. As far as this goes, SuccuBUSTED is, as far as I'm concerned, it's #1 American ecchi. I realize my opinion is a little biased, but I've read a lot of ecchi from all over the world, and I still enjoy this one the most. Its humor is more in line with Monster Musume, if you've seen that one. Super fun book. The anime is also very, very enjoyable.
That's because Bryson Bogus is great, and he was on my show, and he plays the main lead in that show. That's all I'm going to say. But
He
I
works with the main
digress.
guy.
He plays the main lead, and he's great. He's great. He's a great guy to know, and he's phenomenal at what he does.
What
He
was that
also
ship like?
he plays the main also in Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon. He's great. He's phenomenal, and he's going to be a superstar sooner rather than later if he's not already. But I digress right there. Obviously, I want people to back your project. I'm looking forward to it. I'm probably going to pick up that Resident Evil cover, the Trick or Treat cover, because that's just more my style. It's video game oriented. It'll be fun to throw up on social media, and obviously, it's kind of super exclusive. Where I think your Kickstarter is running a little past October, and once October 31st hits, that book is sort of off the table. So that's why I'm going to pick it up because it's going to be a cool one to have. Um, I'm also only going to pick up the regular version because I like to share this stuff on social media, and well, new books don't do well on social media. That's called demonetization, or you get a strike. And I have plenty of those. I'm like two away. I'm
You
two
got to
away from
suffer it.
I'm just two away from YouTube shutting me down for good. I'm just saying.
You have to put the little black censor bars over it. Kickstarter, I learned from a colleague of mine who had his project denied despite it being censored. There's a very particular way that these things and these individuals who run this are acceptable of things being censored out. It seems that don't try to be fancy, don't try to be sneaky, just use a black bar that says censor on it. That seems to be the safest route to go. Other than that, you can also use things that will, if you're using social media like Instagram or whatever, you can trick their algorithm, their bot a little bit by putting things to cover things like nipples or crotch that don't resemble them in any way, like a chibi cut out of a character's head, something like that. That tends to trick it.
I'm just avoiding it. It's just the easiest because the gains are so minimal to me on followers that it's not worth risking it. But I digress. As I was saying, obviously I want people to back it. So please go support indie comics, indie projects. Best way to do it is backing on Kickstarter, whether you're backing digital or physical rewards. All of it does help. Every little bit helps. Also, going beyond that, following people on Discord, joining Discord servers, joining Twitter, following people on Twitter, liking Facebook pages, liking Instagram pages, actually commenting on this stuff and sharing out projects goes a long way. It makes a huge difference because the algorithms are not the same way as they used to be. And there's projects that I have not seen. And then I'm like, wait, this is 20 days old. How did I not see this? And I'm sure everybody's seen that as well. So sharing things gets it in front of more people. So that's a big one. And also commenting and just saying, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing. It goes a long way. When I read a message and somebody says, oh, man, great interview, it goes a huge way for me, more so than anything else, because it says, oh, somebody's watching, somebody's actually paying attention. And it makes me feel good for a few minutes, if not a few days sometimes. Also, and you need to do that, and it's super important. Also, I'm an indie content creator. I appreciate shares. I appreciate likes. I appreciate thank yous. I have Buy Me a Coffee. Obviously running this isn't cheap. So if you like what I do here, you're more than welcome to do that. If you want to buy ad space, be my guest. I'm down for that too. I am launching a Kickstarter. It's going to be fun. There's going to be more on that. But more importantly than that, as I stated, please share this out. Please like my Facebook page. Please, tell me what you think of my show. It goes a long way. It makes me feel special. Or, just give it a heart. I appreciate hearts and all sorts of stuff like that. And so on that note, I know we're slightly over time, actually a lot over time. My bad. But I'm going to give you the final word.
All I can say is, if you haven't already, check out SuccuBUSTED on Kickstarter. It's well overfunded, but that is fantastic because the more overfunded it becomes, it means the more free stuff you, the backer, are going to receive. We are about at our last currently opened stretch goal, which there's one left, which will be a magnet. But there are many, many more that I have prepared just in case we went past it. It's trading up stretch goals is probably one of the hardest things to do because if it's over, you can overestimate it and underestimate it easily. And I've overestimated it this year, and that turns out to be not so great for creators to do that. But once we hit our next one, which is at 20,000, which we're just shy of right now, a whole new list of stretch goals will come out, all the way up to 30,000. And we will, if the gods are merciful enough to allow it to go past that, we will unleash another set up to another 10K after that, and so forth. And that's all I
Yep. I'm looking forward to it. 40K to the moon, guys. 40K. We're going to put Bitcoin to shame with your Kickstarter. That's the plan, right?
That would be nice.
You're going to be able to buy a whole Bitcoin with the Kickstarter funds. That's the plan, right?
It'd be nice, but it's also terrifying. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed.
And then obviously, I think that's the best way to wrap it up. And so I think that's a wrap.
All right, thank you.